Tony Blackburn had been forced to pull out of his Radio 2 show at the last minute after a health crisis, and he has now confirmed just how dangerous his conditions were. Tony Blackburn has now spoken out on the multiple life-threatening conditions he was struck down with during his recent 2-month hospital stay. "I was doing 3 shows a week at one time, forgetting that I am now a little bit older, so I ended up in hospital for 2 months with sepsis and pneumonia and blood poisoning." He grimaced in a new interview with BBC Scotland. "I didn't realise how unwell I was until one day in the hospital my whole family were gathered around the bed, and I thought, this isn't good." Sepsis, often called blood poisoning, is a sometimes fatal condition which begins when an infection causes the immune system to overreact and start to attack its own tissues and organs. It is considered a medical emergency, as without swift intervention, it can lead to organ failure and, in the case of septic shock, death in around half of cases. Besides that, the poorly radio DJ was also struck down with pneumonia, a serious condition causing inflammation of the lungs. He wasn't released from London's Wellington Hospital until May and, all in all, was forced to take a 3-month break away from the job he loved. Though it wasn't easy for him to accept, the 80-year-old admitted he'd been taking on more than he could handle while touring his Sounds of the 60s show. Fortunately, the much-loved radio favorite has now been given a clean bill of health, despite taking daily injections since his hospital release to maintain his health. "A couple of weeks ago, I went to see my specialist and he said you are cured, so that was a nice thing to hear," he exclaimed. Tony has now scaled back his phenomenally successful show, committing to just 1 per week instead of the previous 3, and has triumphantly declared that he is back on form and selling out. The star has also returned to his BBC Radio 2 show, following Johnny Walker's stint covering for him. Meanwhile, although he was sadly prevented from picking up the gong he won this year at the Audio and Radio Industry Awards in person, he has now been able to post a social media photo of himself holding it. His revelation about his health woes clarifies his status after a previous claim that he had been suffering from a chest infection. Back in May, the DJ took to Twitter to tell the world that he'd been released. "Thanks to everyone at the Wellington Hospital in London, doctors and nurses, for looking after me. After my treatment and arrest I look forward to getting back at BBC Radio 2 and at BB Local Radio to doing what I love doing," he promised. "Just want to thank all my friends for your lovely messages. You are all so kind to think about me XX.